election manifestos continue to be launched by various political parties. So the EFF today launching its Provincial manifesto in Dobsonville, Soweto today. The party is hoping to be part of a government in the economic hub of the country. SABC News political reporter Natasha Phiri is live for us there. Natasha, a very good morning to you. Thanks indeed for your time. So if my memory serves me well, we're talking about an over 10% support for the EFF in the last election here in Gauteng. Correct me if I'm wrong, and certainly they're hoping to do better than that.
Well, thank you so much, Criselda. You're not wrong at all. Just to be precise, the EFF in the last elections actually got 10.30% of the share of the vote here in Gauteng. And of course, the wish and the hope for the party is that they actually get more this time around. You would know that Gauteng has a voting population, the highest voting population of 6 million people, Criselda. And of course, the EFF was actually also gunning for this very province. You would remember, Criselda, that on the 10th of February, the EFF held their main manifesto launch in KZN at the Moses Mabhida Stadium under the theme, Our Land, Our Jobs Now, End Load Shedding. And the party expects this whole message to actually filtrate down to the various provinces. Of course, they've started in the Gauteng province, and they will be heading to the other, 8 provinces across the country in the build-up to the hotly contested elections. But joining me now is the EFF chairperson in this province, Mr. Ndonga. Thank you so much for joining us at SABC News, Mr. Ndonga. So, I mean, first and foremost, you'd be willing, or the EFF actually wants to increase its electoral gains at the polls. The last time you got 10.30%. What are you looking at now?
No, thanks for having us. We actually received 13.4% or so in the previous elections. Which
in
was
Gauteng?
Yeah, definitely, which was a sign of confidence, particularly from the people of Gauteng, considering that we are above the average growth of the EFF at a national level. So we are grateful for that. And obviously we've seen serious growth in the economic freedom fighters in Gauteng across all the regions, more particularly now that we're also actively participants in different spheres of government in Gauteng generally, and the experience that comes with having been led by the Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, and the collective to actually really grow an organization as opposed to just a party that contests elections. We are obviously launching our manifesto today here in Gauteng, which is basically a blueprint and a program of action that seeks to show society the program of action that we are willing to undertake and the commitments that we are making publicly in terms of what we seek to do in the next 5 years.
Kulego, besides you being the chairperson of the EFF here in this province, you're also an MMC in the city of Ekurhuleni. Just, take us into confidence. What actually happened at the council sitting meeting where we saw you and members of the ANC somewhat getting into a brawl? What actually happened? You have the ANC accusing you of facilitating the worst display or disregard of democratic processes. You, on the other hand, had said that you are appalled by the toxic and thuggish behavior displayed by the ANC.
Yeah, what happened is no different to what the EFF is continuously subjected to now that we're in government. Consistently we show the successes of an EFF that's in government, a responsive organization, particularly when it comes to matters of service delivery, obviously to the dissatisfaction of those that we have configured a government with, to a point that you would hear comments such as we are bullying, we don't want to concede to certain things that they would have wanted us to concede to in the shadows that are not articulated in the media and in the media spaces. And also, the perception that we are actually overshadowing certain members of the executive that we lead with across all municipalities in Gauteng. So what you see is obviously a regressive attitude towards the economic freedom fighters, having analyzed obviously the milestones that the EFF has taken in government, and it's a rejection, and it's normal because people are now starting to see the economic freedom fighters actively involved in government and actually delivering on deliverables and practical ones, that is. And that does not sit well with an organization that 30 years later, when they make a speech, they continuously say, give us another chance. With the EFF successes on clear display and in the public domain, everyone knows that we are the alternative. And obviously they would look into that, try and poke into it, and actually attempt to remove our participation in governance, not particularly because there's anything wrong that we have done or that we are doing, but only for their own self-satisfaction and gratification, which is an opposite contrast of what is in the interest of society.
So moving forward, what's going to happen? I mean, for a resident from Ekurhuleni who's just, listening and watching this interview, what needs to happen then? Can both parties not put aside their differences and, work for the better good of service delivery, especially for the residents of Ekurhuleni?
Let's not just look at the people of Ekurhuleni, because we've got an extremely dysfunctional state in the city of Tshwane, which has collapsed under the governance of the racist DA with Action SA. We've got now what they did not even adopt a adjustment budget in the city of Johannesburg as a result of a budget that is unfunded or underfunded rather. So these are our systematic problems that we are finding expression across the entire Gauteng, and the only solution that is there is to vote for land and jobs now and the ending to load shedding. And what is it? That means vote the economic freedom fighters on the 29th of May 2024.
But Dunga, this also thrusts into the spotlight how unstable coalitions are at a local government level. Should perhaps post the elections we have a government that is of coalitions? I mean, what is to happen? Shouldn't South Africans be concerned about this?
No, they shouldn't, because if the interests of the people are spearheaded as opposed to selfish political interests and internal dynamics of political organizations, then there shouldn't be differences. I mean, why should we have a difference in terms of having basic agreements as to ensuring that there's water supply for the people of Amanskraal? Why should we have differences in saying that let's go to the people of Bukutsong, and actually look into the issue of not only zamazamas and illegal mining that is taking place, that has bordered in the lines of extreme levels of criminality, but also the sinkholes that our people are subjected to in those areas. There's nothing that's stopping us from saying that let us at least agree that let us have a sewage network system that is completely functional in the areas of City Bay, and we can then constitute a government based on those basic agreements which speak to human dignity and human rights. And the economic freedom fighters is at the center of the articulation of saying that it should not be to the interest of the EFF to assume positions and be going around in blue lights and accumulating positions of society when it doesn't equate to the deliverables for the mere basic man that is on the ground, that is willing to have land and work the land but has no access to it.
Just lastly, I mean, we heard at the manifesto launch of the EFF a lot of commitments made by your leader, ending load shedding in 6 months, various grants for uneducated young people. What is your commitment to the people of Gauteng should the EFF take over post these elections?
One of the greatest things that we need to do, is to ensure that there's an ending to load shedding. It requires political will. It's an internal sabotage by the political authorities that currently control the state, and in so doing, you would have protected and enhanced the revenue of Gauteng and increased its activity, particularly in terms of its contribution to the GDP, which has seen almost 0.3% growth for the past 30 years. How do you expect to create jobs when there are no industries? Because that's where we should be moving to, the re-industrialization of Gauteng and really turning it again into being a workshop of the country, where industries are stationed here, not just from a logistic perspective or from a service perspective, but really creating manufacturing hubs across the entire province so that they can absorb as many jobs as possible. And when people are generally employed, they're able to earn a salary and they're able to spend. And when they spend, that equates to an economic activity where they even at times are less reliant on a state to actually do basic service delivery to themselves. We are in the main also speaking to free and quality education. I mean, Gauteng spends over 60 billion in terms of its budget on education, but just the other day you had ceilings falling off and almost 13 children that were injured, you know. So these are just some of the things that we'd look into as the EFF, ensuring that we retract and actually correct the backlog of almost 2 million houses, and with so doing you introduce a state-owned construction company that will absorb many artisans to actually play into the frame of building and the construction of these houses, which would equate to not only the backlog being reversed but the creation of employment.
Mr. Dunga, thank you so much. Of course, we look forward to hearing what you have to say on the stage shortly. And this is, as the program has now officially started, Criselda, we expect the leader of the EFF, Mr. Julius Malema, to address the attendees here from 12 noon. I can assure you it is a busy day for us SABC journalists, as we are bringing you so many manifestos of various political parties. I myself bring you the Gauteng leg of the EFF's manifesto.